Do you feel overwhelmed, stuck, or just plain confused about your life and what's next? I want to tell you, you're not broken. You're just unclear. If you feel like your mind has 47 tabs open and you keep thinking, I should have my life together by now, today's conversation is for you. Today, I'm talking with clarity coach April Bragg, and she's going to walk us through her simple 3 question exercise to calm the chaos and confusion so you can make better decisions and have the clarity and confidence that you really desire. April, thank you so much for being on the podcast channel today. So let's start by defining clarity. How do you define
All right.
clarity?
Clarity, I think the simplest definition is realizing that clarity is the absence of confusion. But for a more fuller definition, clarity is simply knowing what's important to us and why. And
Mm,
because if we just know those two things, and clarity applies to any situation, micro situations, macro situations, what's important to me here and why, then it makes making decisions easier, makes knowing like we met at an event recently, makes walking into the event knowing, why am I even here? Is this a good use of my time or a waste of my time? What am I here for? So anything that I go to in life, but I used clarity as, like how to define what's important in parenting and why, what's important in my business and why, what's important in my relationship with my parents and why, because then it just helps me show up as a better person because I know, oh, here's what I'm bringing to this situation.
good. So if somebody out there is listening, they clicked on the video or the listening on the podcast, and they feel completely overwhelmed, confused, lost, what is your advice to them? Just with that being said, what should they
Yes.
do next?
Simplest advice in the world is to do a brain dump. So this is just a beginning mini clarity exercise because I see this over and over again. We feel like there's just so much on our mind. And while we're feeling that, we're just spinning and doing absolutely nothing. So let's just do something productive. Grab a piece of paper for 5 minutes, just write down anything that's on your mind, the things you're worried about, the things you're thinking about, things that you feel like you need to get done, but just write it down as fast as you can do it. And then once it's there on a piece of paper and not being carried in your brain any longer already, I promise you, you're going to feel better because it's contained. And
Yeah.
we're not going to now try to do all of it because that would just be ridiculous. That would get us overwhelmed again. Then we would just ask three simple clarifying questions. What's important? What's important now? And then what's the next step? And then that can get us back into action.
So good. So what I hear you saying is instead of just thinking about it and feeling overwhelmed in your mind, actually do something, take some action, grab a piece of paper and ask yourself those 3 simple yet powerful questions.
Yes, I do it all the time. What's important? What's important now? What's the next step? Because when we're confused, it's like there's multiple parts of us trying to talk all at the same time. And it's
Yeah.
like then stepping back and saying, okay, we're going to listen to everybody and everything. What's all the concerns? And it just gives you a chance to, um, yeah, not even so much make a plan, just calm down and bring in the more logical part of us, to take
Mm.
care of the more confused part of us.
So if that helps spark the logical side of our mind, does that mean the opposite is true, that if we're not doing that, we're just in our head, that's tapped into more the emotional side? Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we need both parts. Like, for example, the question, what's important, is almost an emotional question. Like,
Mm.
what's important? It might be like, it's important that I take care of my health, or somebody in my family is struggling, and it's important that I be there for them. So it's speaking more to like our purpose and our big heart needs. And then what's important now is getting more to the logical, like what could be done. There's probably a bunch of things on that piece of paper that cannot be done. I remember Stephen Covey talking about, things that are within our realm of control and things are without. When I understood that, it was like, oh my goodness, I spend all of my time thinking about all the things that I cannot do anything about. And I'm spending none of my time concentrating on the things that I could actually be doing that would make my life better.
That's
And
so good.
so, yeah. And so what's important now is kind of like bringing that focus in, like, is there something I can do? And if so, then what's the next step? And then that just breaks it down to where it's easily manageable. And I say we're strongest when we're not resisting our emotions, but we're working in alignment with them, you know. So we're understanding that we are emotional beings and the goal is not to be logical all the time and ignore our emotions. I
Hmm,
think that the better thing is to understand that no, we just work more powerfully from like peace and to be able to step into that emotional mindset.
that's good. So, how do we, when it comes to peace, how do we cultivate that and live in that rhythm instead of all the other options?
Yeah, yeah, it's really, recognizing that it's a choice, but it's also this is why I love the topic of clarity, is because when we have clarity of purpose, we have clarity of our values, and those are
Hmm.
different for every single person, and I think that those are, kind of purposefully unique to us because they're kind of clues to our assignment. When we have clarity of our priority for the season, and then clarity of who our people are, as in, you know, these are the people that are mine to nurture and to form connection with. And these are the people, social media, that I should just ignore. They have no input on my life, not important. When we know those big pieces in our life, then when other things come, we don't have to have anxiety. We could just simply make a decision from peace of course I would look into this opportunity because this aligns with my purpose so well. And of course I can safely ignore this because this has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, it reminds me
And
of having
so
clear. Oh, I apologize. You keep
oh
going,
no, no, no.
April.
That's what I was saying. So
Yeah.
having this kind of like I call it, you know, like a personal compass,
Hmm.
then that allows us, like when we know that we know what's important to us, then we can step into peace.
Yeah. I was thinking, when it comes to values, my
Hmm.
wife and I, it's been a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we sat down and we wrote out some values, and we landed on about 5 or 6 of them. And the most important part, looking back and us doing that together, wasn't coming up with the word, but defining what that word means. Because I could say the
Yes.
word faith, and yet what that means to me could look different than what it means to her. And so the fun part for us was not just picking the word, but defining what that means. So, for example, one of them is faith. It's kind of an obvious
Hmm.
one, right? Faith. But what does that mean?
Everybody
We
thinks
landed
we
on,
know what it means until we're
yeah,
like, well, what does it mean?
exactly. So we talked through that and landed on faith, trust God even when it's hard. And so the reason I
Yeah.
bring that up, April, is because looking back, having clarity on my a sense of purpose in this season, like you mentioned, and clarity on values, it's helped simplify and help simplify life, meaning that if an opportunity presents itself, or if I'm thinking about making a decision, I circle back to, okay, is this in alignment with what I'm sensing, the direction God is leading us to in this season? Is in alignment with values and where we're headed? Where looking back, it's like, man, the times I used to take a long time to make decisions, it was really because I was confused and I didn't really know. It's like the story about the ship at the just out, no destination in mind, right?
Yes, drifting.
Um,
Just drifting.
yeah, it's the let's go with the ship, but it reminds me of the Winnie the Pooh thing too, where it's uh, one of them turns to the other. It's Tigger and Winnie the Pooh and says, "There's a fork in the road," and one says, "Which direction should we go?" And one says to the other, "Well, it depends on where are you going." And he said, "Well, I don't know." Then he goes, "Then either way, because it doesn't matter." Same is true in life. If I don't have a sense
Yes.
of direction, then I'm just kind of like Winnie the Pooh or a ship out just floundering in the water, just no sense of direction.
Yeah, 100%. I love that you use Winnie the Pooh is like one of my favorite stories, examples, personalities. Like if we're struggling to understand somebody, it's like a
Yeah.
lot of times it's because maybe they're Tigger or maybe they're Eeyore, you know? And
Okay. Maybe
like
that's why.
they're happy being unhappy is how I think of Eeyore, you know, like, is this an
Yeah.
Eeyore in your life? They're just happy being unhappy. Don't steal their unhappiness away from them. Then you're going to make them
Right.
really unhappy. But
I was wondering why Winnie the Pooh popped in my mind. It must be because
yeah.
that's your thing. I haven't thought about Winnie the Pooh in years, so
Oh, I think about it
that's
all the
funny.
time.
That's too funny.
Yeah. No, exactly what you said. Clarity. then makes life more simple. And when life feels simple, then it feels doable, and then we're able to get more done.
That's good. I can tell that you're a learner, right? You ask great
Yes.
questions, you think through things. It's like you have a little bit of a philosopher in you. You think about
Oh, yeah.
life.
If I'd known
Unpack a
that
little bit.
I could be a philosopher, I would have signed up for that. I'm like, "How do you become a philosopher?"
Nice. That's right. Yeah.
I'll be an armchair
So
philosopher. I'll get an armchair.
exactly. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, like, obviously you're a student. How come being learning based and continue to learn, how come that's so important to you? Most people
Uh,
never read a book after their formal education, and you're a
yeah,
learner.
yeah, and I think it really comes down to, like, what we were saying about value. So, like, you were talking about you and your wife sitting down and figuring out, your joint values, especially as a family, that is so important. My husband and I did both. We figured out our own values and
Mhm.
then kind of saw where the overlap was and also saw the differences so that we'd appreciate, like, for example, one of my husband's top values is generosity. And so it used to, like, when I had a scarcity mindset about money, it used to frustrate me, just how generous he was trying to be when I'm trying to be frugal over here and, save money and do this. And understanding that it's a value of his, like, it's part of his nature. He's not going to change that. And I can either see it as a problem or just admire the beauty of it. And it really changed everything, like really understanding other people's values and how that's just going to be a default way that they work and how we're better, honoring our values than trying to, argue against them or insisting other people have them. So, speaking of values, learning has always been a value of mine. I was fascinated with reading from a very early age. I remember like when I was 11 or 12, I remember no, I was probably 13 or 14, standing in the bathroom one time, and this woman comes up to me and asks me for relationship advice. And I remember having like two thoughts like, this is weird. I'm a kid. And number two, actually having something to offer her because I had been reading the Bible and I had been reading relationship books already.
So you had some input for her.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so as I went through life, I realized, like one of the reasons why I got so organized, I used to be so incredibly disorganized. And I figured out how to get organized simply so I would have more time to read.
Hmm.
And I had no idea that God was using that time as a preparation for my future career. Just had no idea. I just thought it was because I wanted to. So I was reading about economics and I was reading about business and I was reading about architecture and systems and so many things. And then, 10 years down the road, I'm a coach and I'm like, oh my gosh, I already have all this knowledge. I don't have to go figure things out. And so, yeah, the long answer made short is that learning was one of my values that I think God places in our hearts. Or maybe another way is, maybe God arranges circumstances that shape us, that, create those values in us.
That's so good. That's good. When we met it in Omaha, Nebraska, last week about with Myron Golden and
Hmm.
learning from him up there, it's funny because in my journal, I think I may have showed this to you, and yet you introduced. I think I asked what kind of business you have, and you said that you're a clarity coach, right? I'm not.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Yes, that's
in my
correct.
journal, I'm like, that is so. That's one of my personal values. There's three things I believe that I help people with, and helping them gain clarity is one of those
Hmm.
three. And in my journal, the morning of, I thought, okay, well, my son's here with me. We've invested our time and resources to drive from Kansas City up to Omaha. And I asked myself a question that morning before we met on day one. But when it's all said and done, like, why am I here? What am I looking to gain or benefit from as a result of these 2 days investing and being there? And I wrote down in the at the end of my journal entry for that day, I wrote clarity and I described the area. And all the way at the very end, I put, because clarity is powerful or can be powerful. And
Hmm.
so it's what I've heard, that there's two ways we can live our life. Number one, saying that everything is a coincidence and nothing matters. Or this is the side that I buy into, that we can live our life in a way that nothing is coincidence and everything matters. And so when I met you and you introduced yourself as a clarity coach, I thought, oh, I want to I want to have a conversation and see what I can learn from you about that one. That's an important.
Yeah, the clarity, I think it speaks to, do we want to live our life intentionally? I actually think that there's two ways we can do this, okay? I
Hmm.
think that we can live our lives intentionally, or we can live our lives with intense curiosity. Like, I think that there are certain people out there that are just wandering around through life doing beautiful things with no plan at all whatsoever. And they're just blessing people wherever they go, whatever they do. I always think about like sometimes young people doing the van life, doing things.
Okay.
And so I think, neither way is wrong. It's just some of us are really desiring to live intentionally. I think other people are, living intentionally, even if it maybe not, it looks like wandering. But there's a middle ground, and that is people who are just letting life happen to them and not liking it. Yeah, and it's like, get into one or the other, like life happens to me and everything is going to be good. Romans 8:28. We know
Hmm.
that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them are the called, or
Sure.
we know that all things work together because I'm putting in the work to make it work together. I mean,
Yeah,
but
that's
don't
a
sit
good
in the
point.
middle ground of life just happens. And what are you going to do? I don't know. Just,
Yeah,
crack open a cold one.
that's funny. So the people you've worked with and you think about commonality of
Hmm.
struggles they may have and how you're able to serve them and help them move forward in life and maybe even get unstuck and gain clarity, what else is important that you would like to share around clarity?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you asked the question that way, because one of the obstacles to having clarity is when we're not quite sure of who we are. And so we're trying to do everything some preformed somebody else's way. So, like we're going against our nature. For example, I look at, just to go back to the Bible example, Mary and Martha,
Hmm.
two totally different people. Or, Peter and Paul, incredibly different people. And we have so much goodness to offer the world. But when we are, saying like a fish trying to act like we're a bird, then, we're just killing ourselves. And the same thing, a bird trying to act like a fish is just um, drowning. One of my favorite stories is to tell, like, imagine that we're all lined up and, God's handing out assignments and we're all puppies. And there's a golden retriever and he's sitting there and he's like, "What's my assignment? What's my assignment? What's my assignment?" And God said, "You are going to retrieve things." And he's like, "Yay, yay, I'm going to retrieve things. It's so exciting. That's everything I ever wanted to do." And then a German shepherd is there and he's like, "What's my assignment? What's my assignment? What's my assignment?" And he's like, "You are going to guard things." And he's like, "Yes, that is what I wanted to do." And I think that we think there's something wrong with us when oftentimes it's just there's something wrong with the way that we're going at the assignment, going
Mm.
at the job. We are working through from our weaknesses instead of from our strengths.
Hmm.
We are unaware of our own brilliance, mostly because we're completely so used to it that we just think everybody can do this. And they can't. And that's what they're waiting for you to do. And so there's the clarity piece and then there's the identity piece. And when you understand, these are the things that are important to me, and then these are the things that I have that I could offer to the world and where I should focus. Then the third piece is just making it more simple, simple through systems, simple through habits. Life really does simplify and can be a lot more simple when we understand, our clarity and our identity.
That's good. When it comes to figuring out okay, let me back up. I've heard this before that we're born to win and yet conditioned by society to lose. So when I think
Mm,
about you
yeah.
sharing with the animals and having an assignment and they're just thrilled because it flows, their assignment is directly connected and flows from how they were created to be.
Yes.
How does somebody, I mean, especially with the internet and just all the things we're exposed to, how do we like unwind and figure out who we really are? Because I think sometimes that could be just a little bit confusing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Um, one of the most powerful truths that I came to was we can see the world as full of scarcity, or we can see the world as full of abundance. Like we can look at the
Mm.
world through a scarcity mindset or through an abundance mindset. And we can look at ourselves as scarcity or
Mhm.
abundance, even time. We can look at it as scarcity or abundance. And understanding the difference between the two and the way we see things when we're in, like practice being in both. So when we're in a scarcity mindset, we only see obstacles to everything. When
Mm.
we're in an abundance mindset, we see opportunities and abundance of opportunities and connection. And, we just see everything working together beautifully. But the same thing is with us. We are so much more aware of our faults than our features. And so even like I I am so not big on labels. Like half the world thinks that they have ADHD, which I think is like crazy because either we're being trained into it or that's how it's meant to be. Like maybe
Yeah,
this we should be calling it creativity instead of ADHD, and
100%.
stop seeing it as a problem. If half the world has it, that'd be like saying, well,
Yeah,
half the world is not a man. And it's like, well, that's not a problem.
right. I know
you know
sometimes when that's you just
oh my
landed
gosh,
on
it's
an
a
area
woman,
that
that's not a man.
if I had something that just almost kind of triggered me, meaning emotionally, I could just feel a boil start to happen on the inside. It's definitely putting labels. And you touched
Yeah.
on one of the big ones. So I could appreciate
Yeah,
what you're
and
saying about
so
this.
if we will take it and say, what if it's not a flaw, what if it's a feature?
Yeah, that's
What
good.
if you know what if it's not procrastination? What if it's an abundance of too many good ideas?
Hmm.
you know
Yeah.
and it's like, and it just changes things because instead of trying to solve our problem with procrastination, it's like, oh no, I'm just tempted. I've got an abundance of good ideas, and sometimes I have a hard time figuring out which one I should focus on right now. It's totally different.
Yeah. So what's the principle there? Is it asking a better question or help me discover what the
Yes,
underlining
it's
print is
that.
it? Hmm.
100. Yeah, I have a whole, yes, I've got probably a video or two about the whole key to life is asking a better question. If you're asking a poor question, you're going to get a poor answer. Ask a better question, you'll get a better answer. Like,
That's
for
good.
example, my favorite one is try this question on. What's wrong with me? And the brain's like a computer. It's like, okay, she wants to know what's wrong with her. We can stay here all day long. And it's like, what's right with me? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, that's harder to answer. Or what if
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with me? What do I need right now? What would be
Mhm.
beneficial? What am I desiring? What could I do? What could I do to make this better? Whatever the question is, our brain wants to answer it. And the other simple little tip I would say is never allow yourself to say I don't know. At the very least say my best guess is.
How come?
Because I don't know is it's kind of like lazy. It's what our kids would say. What's the homework assignment? I don't know. Why do they say that? Because they don't
Mhm.
want to do the homework. It's like,
Right.
well, how would you know? Well, I
Yeah.
would call up a friend or a teacher, but it's
Yeah.
it's our brain just wanting to be like, don't make me think right now. I'll just say, I don't know, and
Yeah.
then and we accept that as an answer when we would not accept that from our kids. What do you mean you
Right.
don't know?
Right. If you did know, what would it be? Yeah.
If you did know,
Right.
what would it be? Yes.
I could tell you're a student of, identifying and asking great questions. Do you do that in a systematic way? Meaning, do you log them somewhere? Do you have a process when you hear a great question?
Wish I would have. I need to go back. One of my thoughts is I was thinking about writing a book about, a
Yeah.
100 better questions.
Okay.
But I could have had that book already written if I had already had a system just logging the questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, I don't. But yes, I want to.
Good for you. What would you title
Yeah.
the book, um, about questions? Any ideas around that?
Yeah, probably 100 better questions to get you unstuck. Or see, I always think
Yeah.
about, I think in pictures a lot. So I always think about, when I'm talking to a client and I can hear they're asking a question, it's like that
Mhm.
question is driving you straight into a corner. You're just like a little robot. You just walked, or the Roomba. You just walked into the corner and now you're stuck and just going bump, 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 bump. And
Yeah.
it's like, just ask a different question. Oh, look, there's the rest of the room. Now we can go and explore.
That's a valid point. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the when asked the title, you mentioned like better question. It seems like I could totally see you doing that. That seems like you.
Yeah, because here's the other thing that I've learned. Here's a bad question. It'd be surprising. I mean, it sounds like it's a good question, but it's not actually. What's my best option here? Because most times we don't have enough information to actually
Mhm.
know what is the best option.
Hmm.
So when we're looking at a bunch of things, it's like, well, what's a good option here? And then that gives us direction. But when we say, well, what's my best option here? It's like, oh, I don't know. I can't tell. I mean, option A looks good, but option B looks good too.
Right.
It's when you go to a restaurant, what's my best option on this menu? And it's like, well, the only way we'd know that is if we tasted every single thing on the menu,
Yeah.
which would not be our best option.
So what would
So,
be the question you propose instead of that one?
like, what's a good option here?
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at a menu and it's like, oh, what's a good option here? Ah, fish sounds great. I love fish. I'll probably be pleased with this. So it just lowers the bar. It doesn't put us in that perfectionist zone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, from Myron's event, is there
Mhm.
any questions that now you're asking yourself as a result of being there last week in Omaha?
That's a good question. Let me think about that. Any questions I'm asking myself? Oh, yeah, constantly. So I have a YouTube channel, April Brag About Life,
Mhm.
and slow growth. I mean, that baby grows about 3 or 4 subscribers every month. And it's what could I do better to be more interesting?
Hmm,
Yeah, that's
fair
the
enough.
question. Yep.
Yeah, I
What could I do
appreciate your
better?
willingness to be so vulnerable to share that with us.
So, oh yeah.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about it all the time. What could I do better to be more interesting? Or just what
sure,
could I
yeah.
do? Sometimes it might not even be more I don't know. I don't have enough data if it's like more interesting or better, because better
Yeah,
might be, like maybe there's a technology piece of, that
yeah,
I'm
good call.
missing, a setting, or maybe I'm confusing the algorithm, or
Mhm.
but yeah, seriously, what's one of the things that I asked to not be hypercritical is like, again, we want to be able to see both sides of the coin, both sides of life. What's working? Because so many times we focus on what's not working and we change up too many things, and we didn't pay attention to what might have already been working that now we're not doing anymore. So when
Right.
I'm evaluating anything, I'm asking, first of all, what's working? Well, what's working is I'm showing up consistently.
Mhm,
Now,
that's a big part.
yeah, what's not working? People aren't finding me. Okay,
Mhm.
what could I do next, or what could I do better?
Yeah.
And then that'll give me like that action step of maybe I could share it on Facebook, or maybe I could play with a different type format, or maybe I could trade out some thumbnails. Pick one thing so I'm not
Yeah, good
overwhelmed.
call. Yeah.
Yeah, again, I became a clarity coach because I used to be the most confused person in the world.
Now, my coach Omar El Khatori was one of the he facilitated the event and was a keynote speaker a time or two.
Mhm. Yeah, he was
Have you
great.
have you checked him out much on YouTube yet?
I didn't even hear about him until I went to the event, and he was
Okay.
one of the people that helped me the most because he said an interesting thing about I use my length of video as a filter for the type of people that I want. And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Oh, okay." And I went up and asked him about that, and
Mhm.
he went a little bit deeper into it. But I was like, "Oh, I've been trying for a long time to take, a whole bunch of stuff and get it down to 8 to 15 minutes, it, because that was the advice that my
Sure.
YouTube coach ChatGPT told me." And to listen to Omar say, "No, no, no, that's a feature of my channel, not a flaw." And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, gosh, well, let's stop working on that then, and let's, let's go with
Yeah.
that." Because again, That's more aligned with my identity too. I like to listen to depth rather
Yeah,
than, short little tidbits.
that's so good. I hired him, it was a year ago this month, actually. And there's a video on YouTube he has. It's called 2025 Content Strategy for the Year.
Mhm.
Golden, because he gets into the
Ooh.
principles around thumbnails, not having more than three things on them, the format content because the world's kind of burnt out on shorts, and we're in a trust recession. He says that frequently, meaning that people are looking for someone they trust. And when it comes to videos over 15 minutes, it gives people an opportunity, if they're interested, to get to know you more. And when people get to know you more, there'll be a certain percentage of people that click and watch that will say, I'm going to go, I want to find her, so that's why at the end of today, we'll give an option for people to go and find you should they
Oh,
be
yeah.
interested. And what's fascinating to me right now that I've been a student of is that for years I've resisted social media, right? I launched
Mhm.
my real estate business in 2007 and grew by building a network of people that trust me and that send me referrals, which is great. And I've just been fascinated over this past year with the idea of serving people that could be completely across the world that I'll never meet in person.
Mhm.
And so that I'm just fascinated with. And so the moves I've been making over this last year is to position myself not from, I love that you mentioned abundance and scarcity. That could be a whole episode itself.
Oh, yeah.
And my point is that what I've learned from Omar that's been helpful, it's about becoming more findable online and being consistent, because there's profit in all labor is what the Bible says, right? So all work
Mhm.
works. And there's a temptation once I'm being consistent, if I'm not getting the results that maybe I'm hoping for, then there's a temptation to discredit, disqualify, and stop the rhythm I've established and say it's not working. And one thing I've learned from Myron and Omar is that there's profit in all labor. The work is either working on me or it works on me before it works for me. And it's
Yes.
becoming the person. So it's been helpful to learn from Omar because he's a phenomenal communicator. And I watch his sermons, I watch his YouTube channels, just like I watch Myron and follow him around. I'm just fascinated with their level of communication.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's just essential, I think, in life. So I would encourage you
Mhm.
to check out Omar, and you're learning from Myron, obviously. So you're,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be continue to
Yeah,
be
I really
helpful.
appreciate that video recommendation because that's the kind of thing I mean, like, literally, um, the thing, because I'm, product my
Mhm.
product. So, when I talk
Sure.
about clarity of purpose, clarity of values, clarity of priority, I do pick a priority every season to focus on because otherwise we can just get overwhelmed. I mean,
Right.
we can just see all these areas that need to be fixed and we feel like we have to fix them right now. And the
Yeah.
question to ask is, no, what one thing, if it got better, would make everything better? And
That's it.
for me, it's my YouTube channel. Like I've actually had the experience. I've had one video um, get like 6,000 views and, like a flood of people came on my email list. And I'm like, oh, YouTube has potential. I should
Oh
figure
yeah.
out how to use this tool.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I just
Oh,
like it better than Facebook. I mean, I've been doing Facebook for a while and it feels like
yeah.
it's getting a little bit more chaotic, which just hits my brain, pretty
Sure.
hard.
Yeah.
There was
Exactly.
something else you said that I found fascinating. Oh, it prompted a thought. One of the things, and it sounds like you already instinctually do this, if not intentionally, is sometimes, especially as entrepreneurs or as, in the online space, we hear a lot and we get a lot. And then, we're taking in too much input and kind of get confused. And
Sure.
I think the benefit is going deep with just a couple of mentors. I'm not saying just one mentor, but, like, or know what you're listening to that mentor for. And so, yeah, like you said, I mean, like, for 3 years, I binged on everything Myron had, signed up for his program and things like that. And so now I kinda know how he's gonna think about something, because I've listened to
Hmm.
him so much,
That's good.
and, And he probably more than anybody helped me kind of like shift from scarcity to abundance, like really anchor in that piece. And so, yeah, I can't wait to watch that video of Omar's because I am in my YouTube season of,
That's just
concentrate
continuing
on
to
that.
refine. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
good. The
Yeah.
season of that's an important one. I wanna hear clearly what you say on that one. You're in a season of what again?
YouTube.
YouTube,
Yeah,
okay.
focusing on YouTube, yes.
Yeah.
Because like you were saying, because we were talking, I guess, before it was recording about, like entrepreneurship and the different
Uh-huh.
pieces. And, like my work with clients is fabulous. My delivery is great. I get referrals,
Sure.
things like that. But the front end of the business where the people come in has
Mhm.
always been my weaker part. I'm more of an introvert. You say networking events, and I'm just like, whatever. More people, oh my gosh. Um,
Yeah,
I love a person. I love, these deep conversations and I love coaching,
yeah.
but the my mind is wrapped for depth, not breadth. And so
Mhm.
it's that's the work. I know that that is the one piece that as it gets better, everything else expands too. And so, the temptation is to focus on the things that I'm already got going well. And it's like my business is, it's very much no, be more, like you said, it was beautiful, be more findable and
Mm,
figuring out what that looks like and becoming a master of what that looks like. And
yeah.
so, yeah. And so that's the goal of the season, be more findable.
Good for you. I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that with me. The word that I've been focusing on this year, I started
Mhm.
with it's the word thrive. Every
Yeah.
year coming into the year, I focus on two things. Number one is going to be asking God for a general sense of direction in the upcoming year. Usually I start
Mhm.
praying and talking to God about that around October, this time of the year, for
Yeah.
the upcoming year. And then the second thing is I pray that He gives me one word to focus on the entire year. That's almost like a theme for the year. And so this year, the word has been thrive. And at
Mm.
the beginning of the year, I'm like, okay, I asked Google, where in the Bible does the word thrive show up? And I end up getting connected to the word abundance. And so when you use
Oh,
the word
nice.
abundance the first time earlier, I'm like, oh, that's my word. And my staple verse is John 10:10. And so, why am I bringing that up again? I'm not sure. Maybe I guess just to share with you. And yet, I could appreciate what you're saying about abundance because it's amazing how my brain works, where there's the part that's the reticular activating system. Don't ask me how to spell it. And yet it's the brain, it's the part of our brain that starts to find what we're looking for. And so what's
Yes.
so fascinating to me, if I'm looking for problems and not solutions and challenges and nitpicking, I could find that all around me. And yet it's so powerful once I make up my mind to choose to focus on the good that's all around me. Like in James, it talks about every good and perfect gift is from God. And so
Yes.
I mentioned that there's three things that's important to me to help people with. One of them is clarity. Number two is to help people find the good and to
Mm.
practice finding the good in others and expressing that gratitude, get it out of their head by using their mouth and do some good with it because it's a blessing to the person. But also there's another biblical process that it's the person who refreshes others themselves are refreshed. So
Yes.
my hope when I coach people to find the good around them, the good that eventually that they'll get enough practice that they can start finding the good in themselves. Because usually
Oh,
people,
definitely.
us human beings, we tend to be overcritical of ourselves most of the time. Or we need to do more instead of being critical of ourselves. Like we need an inner coach, not an inner critic. That's usually more helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, this was the kind of the starting of my personal growth journey was I was so hypercritical. I actually didn't think I was. I mean, but my family experienced me as being hypercritical. And I mean, I knew I was critical of my mother-in-law,
Sure.
I wasn't going to lie to myself about that, but I was like, but that's normal, right? And to understand, oh, the reason I don't feel like I'm critical of others as much, I feel like I'm offering them grace because I was even more critical of myself. So I'm like, I'm letting them off the hook. I hold myself up to this standard. I'm only expecting them to be here. It felt
Yeah.
like that's generous.
Right.
And but it was all from that criticism. And what I say now is, we love our neighbor as ourself, or we judge our neighbor as ourself. So that criticism is a reflection of what's going on the inside. And so if you're finding it hard to love other people, I know that you're finding it hard to love yourself.
Yeah.
Like, appreciate. You're finding it way more easy to nitpick at yourself than appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, that's good. So, any concluding thoughts? What would you like to leave somebody that's stayed tuned this long? What would you like to leave them with?
Clarity is always available to us because and clarity is a gift that we give ourselves. I mean, like the power. I had a client that she said she wrote to me and she said, "You don't help me make wise decisions." She goes, "You help me become the person who makes wise decisions." And
Ooh,
it's like, yeah, because then you won't always need me and I'm not always
point.
there. But wise decisions, are not always a universal decision for everybody. Sometimes they're a unique decision for just us, lined up with our purpose, our values, our priority for this season of life. And so, yeah, understanding that I know the Bible says in the multitude of counselors, there is safety, but I think that sometimes also just means consensus. It's kind of like what the politicians are trying to do. Like, let's just get everybody on board and then nobody will get attacked. But the Bible also says, as in water, heart answers to face, so the heart of man to man.
Mm,
As in, this is the value of coaching is when we can find that person that we can just open up to without fear of judgment and say, hey, listen, sometimes I just need to think out loud. These are the things that I'm considering, and I'm having a hard time discerning, which is a wise choice, which it might be a distraction. And to, have a coach that does that, like what you do, um, or having a clarity code yourself, a personal clarity code that's like, oh, I know what's important to me. I know what's important to my family. I know what's important about my mission. And it just gives us so much of our time and our energy. And you talked about the reticular activating system, our attention even back. Oh, I don't even need to look at this stuff because I'm not interested in this stuff. Has nothing to do with my assignment.
that's
So
good.
yeah, clarity will bless you.
Where can we go to find you?
Aprilbragg.com is my website.
Okay.
Uh, I have a free workshop coming up. It's called Becoming the Time Rich Woman. And I talk about the 3 steps that will make us feeling like when we lack clarity. I mean, we'll notice because we have no time. We're just like always running short on time, and it feels like everything's demanding our attention. And so that is something that I like to do is I like to run a workshop talking about, well, how to become the time rich woman, how to know what's important to you and why, and how to use your most incredibly valuable resource, time, in a way that doesn't feel like you're wasting it or spending it, but you're actually investing it in ways that feed you back even more time, more energy, and more loving relationships. So that's aprilbragg.com/time. And then there's some
Okay.
other things on my website.
So, if they go to your main website, will they be able to find that upcoming class you're putting on?
No, I don't think I have a link to that on my
Okay.
homepage.
If you, whatever link you
But
like me to share, just send that to me
yeah,
via
yeah.
email and I'll make sure to drop that in so
Mhm.
people can click on that and track you down.
Yeah, if they go to my website though and they want to have a clarity call, then there's
Mm,
a button for that. And then there
okay.
is I will say that there is a newsletter link, I think, on that front page. And then they'll hear about the website about the workshop for sure on that.
Okay, very good. We'll make sure to get that included. Thank you for investing your time and sharing some of the things that you've discovered and learned over the years with us today.
Oh, glad
Appreciate it.
to.
Yeah,
So
thank
it
you.
was so fun to run in, to meet you at the event. And
I agree.
no, it's a pleasure. So it's fascinating to have conversations with people that are as intentional as you are,
Mm,
because I get to hear, oh, what have you been thinking about in your brain? And it gives me insight. I love it. Thank you,
yeah.
Chris.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right.